Welcome to a Vurbmoto podcast. This is the Power Hour. I am your host, Brad Gebhardt, and normally I'd be talking at you about the Gypsy 500, but the teams are pretty much already sold out. So instead, let's get straight into talking about Rev 3D and Rev3D.com. The motocross world has collided with 3D printing technology thanks to Jordan Boswell and his team over at Rev 3D. Rev 3D delivers performance and durability in all of their products for the bike as well as in your shop that can help you just get things done a little bit easier. Find out more information at rev3d.com. And now to my co-host. This is kind of a partnered co-host. There's no tiered hierarchy of knowledge here on the Power Hour. Let's go to Zac Herrin.
What's up, man? How are you? First of all, I'm liking the stash, the Fu Manchu.
Thank
I'm
you.
feeling it.
Yes, no, this is I was on a ski trip last weekend, and yeah, I was the first to jump out of the hot tub. Boys were still getting the bubbles going, and I was like, you know what would be hilarious? Turning my beard into a Fu Manchu. So we ripped it down, and I think it's staying for the time being. Like,
Hey, man, nothing sounds like more fun than some mustaches and dudes in hot tubs, man. It sounds like a great time.
let's not go there, but I think Aaron Plessinger would probably be approving of my current wardrobe. But yeah, anyway, yeah,
Absolutely.
stoked on
And
that.
you know what else Aaron would approve of? World Mini, baby. It's back.
Hells yeah.
It's better than ever. I think the trophies are bigger than ever. And you guys can sign up now. That's going to be taking place out at Mesquite MX. It's just an hour outside of Las Vegas there in Nevada, and it's going to be April 4th through the 7th. Like I said, I'm hitchhiking. I've got the Hobo Joe stick with the hanky sack on the back. I'm packed up and I'm figuring out a way out there. But you guys back all over the Verb world can check it out on vurbmoto.com and go ahead and get signed up. You saw how quickly Gypsy 500 filled up, so make sure you're signing up while you still can. And that is April 4th through 7th out at Mesquite. And our big favorite, B Rad, will be out there, won't you, buddy? Showing them how it's done.
No, I'll definitely be there. Whether they have me flagging, working the start gate, or possibly walking around, handing out stickers, part of the vlog. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to it. Hopefully, you'll be there as well, manning the loudspeaker and doing the play-by-play address, which would be a huge addition to an event that's already fantastic. Like I said, Vurbmoto.com. It's on the main banner that you can check out World Mini. That's kind of the marquee event for us, aside from the Verb Classic. Those sort of bookend the year for us. Early in the day, you get some sight lapses. Early in the podcast, let's get into some sight laps and talk about some things in the news right now. Brought to you by Rev 3D. Right off the hop, this last weekend was the retro race or the throwback race or the 50-year anniversary race. Um, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And I think I'll just chime in right off the hop is that if if we're gonna do a theme race, can we at least have the memo go out to everyone and have everyone participate? Because there are some privateer teams that like they hit dingers. Those things they're hitting the ball out of the park so damn wide. You'll never see that thing ever again. And then you basically have the KTM Husky Gas contingent on the factory side that essentially ignore the event altogether.
Yeah, as far as retro races in general, I can't stress how much I love them.
Amen.
I think it's an awesome thing. I think it's cool to celebrate the history of the sport, not only just through the riders, but I mean, everybody talks about the eras, the looks, the feels. I mean, I've got an old, I think it's a 1985 Kawasaki jacket. It's all day glow green. We've got a vintage GNCC race or a throwback GNCC race as well. And I broke it out for that with like a 1991 Parts Unlimited hat, man. I was feeling good, all of which was before I was ever born. But
Of
I
course.
completely agree. I think when it comes down to it, you got to be all in or all out as a community. And I think if you've got a team, whether it's any of those privateer teams who, like you said, they went above and beyond. I mean, a lot of those guys, it'd be
Team
impressive to
Solitaire, are we kidding me?
Right. That's what I mean. And it's impressive not only to see him do the graphics, but they've got the gear combo going with it. The whole crew gets into it. And then you've got these like the big factories, whether it's Monster Energy Kawasaki, Red Bull KTM, Husky Gas, and it's from what I understand, I think it's some political red tape from some of the higher up companies. Although I did see some interesting points now where it's like we're at a point where some of the throwbacks, like Red Bull KTM was around over 20 years ago. Like it's like
Yeah,
you could
like
see some
how
throwback
does Red Bull
stuff.
KTM not come out with the silver front fenders?
That's what
Like,
I'm saying. And I mean, Thor's already got the full mask throwback gear to match that time
yeah,
period. I mean, I think back to the Cooper Webb Red Bull Straight Rhythm bike where he had the old Hot Wheels design and they
yes.
broke out that throwback Thor gear. And I mean, I came unglued. I was hitting up Hilton saying, where and how do I get that? And so I think it was a big missed opportunity. Not only just like, oh man, it looks cool, but I think those teams and those companies don't realize how much attraction that brings to the bikes. I mean, you see, and it's crazy with Cowie doing a throwback design bike as well.
And then
It
they
doesn't
just
make a lot of
fumble
sense.
this one. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like Cowie, nothing really going on there. Or then you had the like it was obviously there is a difference in the graphics that Ken wears in comparison to the other guys on HEP, but like he had a different number font, which was kind of threw me off, and like, he was kind of combining like a 70s font with a 90s shroud look going on. Like that was peculiar to me. And then of course like Fox literally does throwback gear last week, and this week both like all of their guys were just in normal stuff. Like I suppose if you want to throw back anything, Christian Craig had I guess some throwback powder blues that of course this is at San Diego,
yeah. I
a
think that
team
was
that
like a
now plays
Chargers
in
style.
LA.
Yeah,
Like that makes less
it's
sense. But yeah, like I get that it was the San Diego Chargers, but still that I'm gonna throw a little bit of a flag on the play when it comes to that. And yeah, like some beautiful old Huskies from back in the day. Like there's so much meat on the bone when it comes to that. I think Gas could probably like they could have poked some fun at themselves of how their bikes used to look like late 90s, early 2000s, like really just been like or even honestly like if you're KTM with all the success you've had, like you might have evolved to the point where you can kind of laugh at yourself and like just go full tapioca. Like go like late 90s
yes.
purple and like soft orange. Because when certain teams, when certain like when they do the retro race and some people don't participate, it's like going to a Halloween party and someone like just comes dressed up like normal. And you're like, wow, wow. Like it just let's be fun. Let's all participate.
Yeah, I think it's something where I'd be curious to hear from those riders because I can almost guarantee you that all of the riders would like to be a part of it as well. I mean, you can't tell me. I mean, even you look at Cincerello, like he was trying to be a part of it off track just with his get up and with the sunglasses and everything like that. So
Yeah.
those guys are desperate. It's so funny. We as a sport, we talk about we're craving personalities and we're craving, these riders to actually, give us some personality and give us some emotion. And then when we have these cool ideas, and I mean, I think a throwback race is one of those ones where it'll never really get old. I think you can get more organized with it, whether you want to go 90 specific or whether you want to do, however you want to play it. But it's one of those things where I feel like it's a missed opportunity for any of the teams that decide to not take a part of it because it's something where I know I think it breaks up the monotony of the day to day for guys like you and me, where we're looking at this stuff day in and day out. I've seen a pro Kawasaki now at this point, 1,000 times just this year. But then, oh man, you throw a different style on, you throw a different style of graphics on. Now you've got a whole different bike. And it kind of breaks up the monotony of the sport sometimes.
Yeah, no, I would be all on board for a 90s night or a 70s night or whichever like that. As long as everyone's all on board for it, I think it'd be really, really well received. Also, San Diego always known as the military appreciation race, which I thought it was actually quite funny. One of the companies that we work with here at Verb, RXR Protect, they came out with an ad on Facebook celebrating the like this week being the like San Diego being the military appreciation night. Apparently, they didn't get the email thread. that it was a throwback night instead of, if I'm not mistaken, Arlington is the military appreciation race, as they will be. I think they're throwing it to. I think it's the Air Force, if I'm not mistaken. Is usually like the Naval Armed Forces is basically the main focus for San Diego, being of course a hub for a lot of your nation's uh, like nautical armed
America.
forces. Yeah, basically, yeah, 100%. Well, you know, like Canada apparently has some cool shit too. I was actually had a really long conversation with when I was heading down to Shoals. I was at a 3 hour layover in Atlanta and chatted with a guy who'd spent 10 years on a U.S. Marine sub.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he's a 19-year vet. Thanked him for his service. Um, Checking out some more sight laps here, seeing the lay of the land. Aaron Plessinger, AP7, gets his very first 450 win in the conditions that it as much as it like he can absolutely get it done on the hard pack. It's almost like it's serendipitous and it's just done right when a guy who's known to sort of rise to the occasion in conditions just like this does exactly that on one of the most challenging, rutted, just messy tracks you like, but it was still raceable. That's what I loved. It was still raceable. He was able to go out there, get himself a good start. Had to make a pass for the lead. The first time we've seen a pass for the lead in Monster Energy Supercross all season long. He makes that happen and races all the way to the very end. What did you think of AP's win?
Well, I think right off the bat, you hit the point that I wanted to focus on. I know we've talked about it before as far as not wanting to have the asterisk beside the win, and I think these conditions were just perfect for Aaron. Like you said, the track was actually extremely raceable, and my hats off to the entire crew out there because I saw some videos from in person, and it was when it was raining hard out
Yeah,
there for a while. And so they did really well with the conditions that they were dealt. But yeah, man, I mean, I think we're so accustomed to seeing these pro riders 250 and 450. They send everything out on the track, and it's usually maybe one, maybe two jumps on the track that a 450 guy is doing. You know, we saw Jett do that crazy jump before A1, and it's like that was going to be the one jump that some of those guys weren't doing. But everything else is kind of, we know who's doing what. You can hit the inside of corners, and as long as nothing crazy happens, you're still going to hit the triple.
yeah,
Whereas these conditions, like you said, it was still raceable. All of it, was still intense. There was still high speed, but man, if you didn't hit that corner right, if you didn't get your drive correct, you weren't going to be able to make it across that whole triple. And maybe if you did, you had to send it a little front end high. But, it really kind of separated the men from the boys out there and who was willing to send it a little bit. And those conditions, I think the thing about Aaron Plessinger was he just looked so loose. It's just he's able to find this flow in those conditions. And I mean, whether you want to say it's got to do with his off-road background, obviously we saw his dad there, Scott, in the background after his win, giving him a big hug.
yeah,
And they're those conditions growing up, they've got to play a role in. It's I'm sure he does a lot of training there in Florida. He does training in California, very different, soil complexities and stuff like that. But man, he grew up in conditions like that where it's rough, it's rutted like crazy. And I don't mean rutted as in long ruts going in one direction. I mean zigzagging all over the place. And it takes a certain kind of rider to be able to take that out of your mind and kind of flow and take what the track gives you. And yeah, I think you showed why Aaron Plessinger is a legit threat, not only on days like what we saw, but any given day. I think he's got the potential. I've seen a lot of talk about the feelings underneath the KTM truck between, who's the number one and who's the number two. And without a doubt, there's a focus on Chase being the former champion, but I don't think anybody can look at Aaron Plessinger. I mean, he's got the red plate now, but I don't think anybody that is serious could look at Aaron Plessinger and say that he doesn't still have the potential to go out there and do this continuously. So for me, I am beyond stoked. I don't know Aaron personally, but he's got to be up there, top three favorite. I know I picked him on the other episode for the one teammate I'd like to have. So
there you
for
go.
my hypothetical teammate, man, I'm pumped up. I have never seen so many riders stop after a race to congratulate the winner. I mean, there was a line going all the way back to Jett getting slapped by Anderson there because people wanted to stop and congrats AP while he was doing his dance. So I think that speaks a lot about not only who the guy is on track, but who he is once he takes the helmet off.
Yeah, and I was waiting for him to break out the sprinkler or maybe dive into a mud puddle, something along those lines. Yeah, he was busting a groove, and people forget that this is a 250 champion. Like he won. He ran the table. I believe it was the 2018,
I
17.
want to say that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, either one of those 2 years, he won outdoors and in. Very, very dominant. Had his way with both series. And yeah, it was great to see. And honestly, I think that's gonna get put some wind in his sails to grab some more. People forget like the last time he was leading tip to tail, almost like kind of threw it away. Obviously, at the very end, that was Detroit. That's a dome. That's as dry, as slick as you can possibly find for a 450 Supercross. And he was doing just fine then. So we've got ourselves another winner. And also that's three winners in 3 races as far as the 450 class. In fact, both classes have yet to have a repeat guy, if I'm not mistaken. With Nate Thrasher getting it done in the 250 class, that kind of came out of left field completely. You touched on it. We can't get through the site laps without taking a peek at some extracurricular activities between young Jett Lawrence and Jason Anderson. Obviously, this was something. It was an incident that was started on the track and it ended up at the finish line straight away there. After the finish line, Jett calls him over. Had some things to say to Jason Anderson. Clearly, Jason didn't like it. And then I think where it sort of all went wrong there is Jason goes to kind of like leave the situation, and Jett goes ahead and grabs the chin bar, and like I've only been in this situation a couple of times with someone getting in my face. Like as soon as there's physical connection, especially when it comes to the chin bar, because that's a pretty vulnerable spot for guys. Like you don't have a lot of leverage there. I think that's just you just saw Jason Anderson's wires cross, and he saw red. And what we saw then was man strength. He grabbed him by the front of the chin bar and he ripped him down. Um, and that's I think that might have I don't think I've seen Jason or Jett Lawrence's eyes so wide. I think he may have in that moment realized that this is probably more publicized than it should be. And honestly, it's probably getting more press than it really deserves because it's just two guys kind of having a fuck you match after a race. But yeah, what were your thoughts on it? Yeah, in my estimation, like it's a young racer trying to establishing himself and having a bit of a problem with it, and then also a vet that's looking for a little bit more respect.
Yeah, I think you gotta walk a tightrope when you're talking about this because I do obviously we've seen clips of it from every different angle 1,000 times and motocross fans and supercross fans I do feel like have a tendency to every once in a while we want a little WWE action, baby. You know, we want some drama with the gate drop and whether it's intentional or not, you know, this is exactly what this is going to give us. You take somebody, first of all, you got to look at who these guys are before this. All right. Jett Lawrence, he's got to be on a high, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally. The kid is he's doing everything that people said couldn't be done.
He's a
And I mean
450 rookie that has a VIP experience, dude. Like the
exactly.
guy, he is riding a wave that probably hasn't been seen since James Stewart entered the club.
And that's what I mean is you've got to think about we all talk about how mental this sport is, how much these guys are in their own heads and there's a certain confidence and a bravado that comes with that and so I would be curious and I'm sure it'll never happen but I would be curious to hear what Jett's initial reaction was. Now you take somebody like Jason, he's rather quiet. Obviously he kind of does his thing, his team fried group. He doesn't like being necessarily directly in the spotlight. He's also somebody that we know is not afraid to hold a grudge. He's not necessarily the biggest fan of certain media personnel. He's not the biggest fan of certain riders. And so it's an interesting target right off the bat, just looking at the two individuals. Now,
Mhm.
you take a race like that. First of all, the conditions are absolutely insane. These guys are probably pretty established as far as where they are following a supercross race, but in conditions like that, it was just chaotic, even for those guys. Not to mention people I feel like seem to forget that you're in a war out there. Like you're in a battle and it's money, it's pride, it's everything for these people because it is their entire life. And I think any even any amateur racer that really truly cares about what they do and tries hard to do well. If you don't do well, or get approached by another rider immediately following the race, I've never approached it calm. Let me put it like that. I'm not
Yeah.
calm. My heart rate's through the roof. I'm either pissed off or I'm about to throw up because I've been trying so hard to race. And then for somebody to come and start yapping is one thing. I think you said it perfectly. I think the game entirely changed. There was a lot of, up in each other's faces, pointing and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm all about that. I love the emotion. I think we need it as a sport. But Jason is the kind of guy where I don't think Jason was looking to get physical. I don't think Jason was looking for that to go any further than a, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying, but whatever. And you see his body language, he goes to turn. And like you said, somebody grabs your helmet, the game's just changed. You start messing with somebody's head, like you said, you don't have the leverage to do it. And quite honestly, I think we should have a whole separate video on, if you're going to grab somebody's helmet, here's what you should do. Because just holding on to it like that isn't it. Jason Anderson, however, showed you exactly how to make the most of your hand placement. And I mean,
He
man
he
strength,
he put him on a master class when
that's
it
what I
comes.
mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
man strength is real. And you saw a guy who was probably pissed off and was probably yelling at about a 7, immediately flipped to a 10. And I'm sure it was a, listen here, let me tell you something. Because if
Yeah.
Jason really snapped and just completely lost his mind, he'd have taken Jett over and off that bike.
Oh, hell
But
yeah. Yeah.
he was very,
31 years old.
that's what I mean. A lot of people say he was out of line, but I think he was calm, cool, and collected. He very clearly got his attention, let him know, hey, you aren't quite as in control of this thing as you think you are.
Mhm.
And then, Jett's still talking, he's still chirping when Anderson's getting ready to leave. But I think Anderson made it very clear he was willing to go as far as it needed to go. And one of my favorite parts of the entire initial clip is like they show it, and as they're panning away, you just see J Bone sprinting from the side of the track over toward him. Albrecht is just running right
Yeah.
at him. So I knew a fine was coming. I knew something was going to be done with it. And I think that's the other side of it, is it's um, disagreements happen, high emotions happen after the race. But I think for it to happen like that, publicly out like that, I haven't seen anything as far as the actual racing goes to where I feel that was justified. Hey, you want to have a difference? You want to let me know you're not happy? Meet me over in the tunnel. But besides that, I just didn't think it was necessary. So I'm full Jason Anderson on this one. I think it's a little bit of a reality check. I like Jett, and I don't think that this discourages him, but I do think it lets him know, hey, you are in the men's class. These guys are a whole different breed, and what I'm curious to see is the relationship between the 21 and the 18 moving forward. Obviously, we saw the Anderson Barsha thing. And that got to a point where it was almost annoying, where it was like, guys, can you just be near each other without wrecking one another? Like,
Yeah.
as somebody that likes both riders. And so I hope it's not something like that. I hope it fires Anderson up. I like to see Anderson on the gas. He's got a good thing going right now. And so I hope it keeps him, fired up and ready to go. And then, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see how Jett's taking it. I'm sure his team's talking to him about it and the family. And, hopefully, take what you will about the apology. I'm not even going to try to read too much into that, because I don't know what he was getting at with that. But who knows? We might see Anderson in the VIP experience next weekend before the night show starts. So
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, maybe he'll be you doing a photo op with the new mascot over at the Honda rig. Yeah, honestly, the last thing I'll say about it is I think that yeah, I think neither one of their like cooler heads did not prevail in this situation. If they had to go about it differently, I think both guys might handle the whole thing differently. And I'll just say this: but one thing I will say, I like the fire from both of them. I think I like the competitiveness, and that clearly this whole thing means a lot to both those guys. Let's move straight on to the Verb line. This doesn't have a sponsor yet because this is only episode 3. So if anyone has some ideas for who might want to sponsor the Verb line, that's basically a Q&A segment that we were sent over 15 questions for this, and I whittled it down to the top three. We might have to expand this, but we are trying to keep this to a power hour. It's not a power 2 or 3 hour podcast. We could probably just do that on just Q&A alone. But you want to dive into some questions there, Zach?
Let's do it.
All right, straight out of Dallas, Texas, we got Doug Masterson. He goes for Zach. Who of the current 250 class, and I think I knew where he was going with this because I think you probably would have went straight to AP, but who is of your current 250 class would best be served to race a GNCC?
Ooh, that is a good question. Let me think here.
Anybody got long legs to paddle through the mud?
For some reason, I want to say Kitchen. I feel like he's done well in some of these conditions, and I want to say he did well in some pretty treacherous conditions in at Loretta's, like kind of when he first popped onto the scene.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, physical stature, I definitely think helps. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna say Kitchen just because I feel like he does well. I feel like he kind of had a little bit of that similar looseness in those conditions. But I mean, besides that, Zach Osborne. So
Fair
we'll
enough.
go.
All right.
That's a
Uh,
cheap answer. So.
the question wasn't posed to me, but I'll go with the man child, Garrett Marchbanks,
Oh, that's
because
not a bad idea either. Yeah.
yeah, he's already got the beard. Yeah, I think he would fit in with the crew more than anybody. And
Yeah.
yeah, the physical stature of that young man. I think you could see him in an XC2, probably leading the way on some of those flatter sections. I don't know what his skills are like when he gets into the woods, but either way. All right, question for me. Ben Richards out of Tempe, Arizona. We used to race in Tempe back in the day, back in the 90s, when they had Sun Devil Stadium. For Brad, who is the next Canadian kid going to make some noise in the AMA Racing Series? Well, you're going to actually get a look at them this weekend. Not only is this weekend a Triple Crown, they're also going to shoehorn in some futures. So futures will be a part of the schedule for this weekend, and if I'm not mistaken, that includes none other than Ryder McNabb, who is now a two-time Canadian national 250 champion. He's a local to Manitoba. I grew up announcing this kid race 50s, 60s, 85s, and he's been about as fast. He's been faster than me ever since he was on those 65s. But maybe 85s. I give myself a little bit of credit. I think he's been faster than me since he was on 80s. But anyway, yeah, he is a kid to keep on your radar. Ryder McNabb. He's riding for the AEO KTM team. He's looking good. He's been on KTM's for a number of years now. His two championships, however, actually, wait, he won one championship on Hondas, and then he backed it up this last year with on a KTM. So yeah, he can get it done on any manufacturer, and yeah, he would be the guy to watch. Moving on to our third question, we have Allison Edwards. I did not know we had female listeners, and I did not know that they ask questions, but they do apparently. Out of Rochester, New York, and it's important to say New York, not Rochester, Minnesota, which is just a stone throws from Millville. Which is, I think, if you're looking for a place to run into some professional racers, you want to check yourself into a hotel in Rochester because that's maybe one of the only places around there that has half decent hotels. Allison asks for Zach, what is an underrated bike skill that pros have that your average Joe just do not have? And then she also said thanks for the comments or the content. So thanks, Allison.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the questions from all of these guys. And I think there's that. First of all, that's a great question because there's a lot of different answers that you could go with. I mean, right off the top of the bat, just the knowledge of the bike and what the bike does is the biggest thing for me. Even I definitely am not a pro rider or anything like that, but something I've always struggled with is quote unquote testing. It's very difficult for me to feel a lot of differences in the bike, whether I'm talking suspension. Honestly, it blows my mind how grand of changes I can make on the bike, and I have absolutely no idea when I'm out on the track. Whereas these guys are they're surgical. They're so accustomed and they know exactly how the bike is supposed to react. So I would say the bike knowledge is probably one of the biggest ones. But the second one obviously your average Joes don't have as much time to test. So the reason I'm going to give a second one is because this is something that I think anybody can improve on. If you go and you watch these pro riders, indoors, outdoors, whatever, they are using every square inch of the track. And that is something that I think you see all too many times on the local level is these riders, they find one good line, maybe two good lines, and that is what they're going to go with the rest
Yeah.
of the day. And you see somebody
That
like
line as quickly as possible.
exactly that is it, and that is where I'll be the rest of the day. And somebody Cooper Webb comes to mind. He's a perfect example. Not only is he incredible at using every inch of the track. I mean, these guys are clipping the track markers coming off of jump faces, but you'll see Cooper, he changes his lines throughout the course of a race because he's understanding that the track is ever developing. So many times, you sit there and think, oh, how's the track? And then you get on the gate and you just think the track is like that, but the track is an ever changing thing. And so being able to look at the track for what it is at the moment and then being able to learn how it's going to change as your race develops and then adjusting those lines is crucial, especially if you're an amateur rider trying to go somewhere with longer races, obviously such as Loretta Lynn's, where you're going to be out there long enough to where you could actually see a benefit by changing your lines between the start and the end of the race.
Certainly. No, I think you're totally right. And I think actually one of the things that sort of rears its ugly head when you have guys that some guys like really switch things up and some guys don't is guys who are essentially running into the back of other guys. When you got a guy like Cooper Webb who will turn down early in a corner because like every other rut is telling you that they're gonna rip around the outside, where he'll come in wide and then cut across all those ruts to kind of create a race line that's not currently there. Like these tires are very capable. The bikes are very capable. They're not like kind of handcuffed to these ruts and these lines. They can sort of create their own thing. And yeah, that can create some miscommunication coming in and out of these corners. Let's touch on just the race that was. San Diego's in the rearview mirror. That's round three. Believe it or not, after this weekend in Anaheim 2, 250 class will be halfway done, which is like blows my mind. Like that series will be halfway completed. Your current points leader, and if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't been off the podium yet. His average finish right now is a second, which tells me that he's been right around that podium every single time so far. Jordan Smith, and let's be honest, the white the White Star bikes, they were looking great. They didn't like Thor kind of maybe like kind of fumble on the play as far as the throwback gear, although yeah, they like what they could have thrown back to, who knows? Like I don't think the 1993 stuff was like sick. So like although they could have just like rolled out some of that old barbed wire stuff like the bad boys. Like they could have just like
They just had that pink throwback gear like a year or two
I know.
ago. Like I wish they could have. I mean, I know they don't want to use older models, but
AP
like,
wore his gear from Detroit.
yeah. And isn't that ironic? That's a whole nother thing. That was something I
I
had
think that
written.
was planned.
Yeah, I was like, man, talk about like good mojo. If he's not wearing that same stuff next weekend, he's missing out on something because the superstitious in me would be taking over at that point.
Oh, if it's RC, he's wearing that stuff until he retires. Remember when RC ran orange for like a decade? The
Oh, you
guys
mean
at
when
Fox,
he's
the
kicking
guys at
ass?
Fox
Yeah, I
used,
don't
yeah,
blame him.
the guys at Fox must have just been pulling their hair out. He's like, I'm gonna wear orange again. Oh, great, thanks, Rick. Um, but like sick. Jordan Smith, he rounds out your podium. But I think honestly, the real story from this last weekend, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am, is Marchbanks with a second. He was strong the entire weekend. I gotta think that he cultivated some of those rut mastering skills when he was racing the RMX series, which does race at Mesquite MX, by the way. And then the resurgence of Nate Thrasher. And like, is it not just such a Nate Thrasher thing to have like two of the most forgettable rounds to start off the series? He's basically, I wouldn't say mathematically eliminated, but he's still not top 10 in points, but he's also a race winner on the year.
Yeah, I don't want to say I don't want to seem rude when I say this, but Nate Thrasher is either a zero or a hero. And it's like, I
That's
swear the
okay.
kid is either, I mean, I would genuinely be curious to know
I'm just a zero. I'd
how
rather.
many times, yeah, exactly. It's coming from just a zero over here. I guess it's not too bad. But it seems like if he's on the podium, he's won. Like the
Yeah,
guy just has these flashes, and you're like, man, if this kid can put it together on a week to week basis, I mean, it's genuinely going to be scary to see what he can do. But that's just it. If he can put it together week after week, because like we've seen, you have those bad races. Unfortunately, this year those bad races were early in the season, and now he's digging himself out of a hole. And in a field like this, as deep as it is, that's extremely hard to do. But I do think if he can continue to show that he's got these, these flashes and continue to show that he's worth investing in, I'm sure he starts to kind of stabilize out as far as the results go. And he's somebody that I could see being a good 450 rider. I just like the way his style is. I think it'll suit the 450 well. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got to give props to it because there is that takes a lot to be able to get kicked down two seasons or 2 weekends in a row and to pull yourself back up and say, hey, I'm still in this. And so yeah, that's awesome for Thrasher. I think that's awesome for his teammate Jordan to still be in the points lead as well. Jordan's another one who's had a lot of struggles with consistency and with injuries, and so that's my big thing with Jordan is, hey man, I would rather see Jordan finish second in the series and finish the season than to see him,
walk it.
absolutely dominating and then crash with a couple of rounds to go. So
Yeah.
for me, I want to see Jordan healthy. I want to see him outside. I think he's got some potential to throw some wrenches in the plans outside as well. And so yeah, good things going on right now for the star team. I agree the bikes look sick. The gear, I'm glad that they weren't wearing the blue that they were wearing on media day.
Mm.
It did not match the bike setup at all. And I was like, there's
Okay.
no way they're wearing that blue on those bikes. So I was glad to see the black and white. If you weren't going to do a throwback design, that clean black and white was probably the best you could do. So I understand where they were coming from.
Shout out to FXR for maybe my favorite gear that they've ever released with Garrett Marchbanks. That stuff wasn't bad whatsoever. And a nice gradient look from FTA on Philip Nicoletti, who ends up 22nd for the second time this series, collecting 0 points on both those races. He's got to be feeling great about how the start of his season has gone. I believe it was a transmission issue that ended up having him retire early. Feel for the guy. Honestly, he puts in so much work into this series in order to get himself where he's at. And I did do some quick research while you were answering or giving your thoughts on Nate Thrasher. He now has 5 wins into his career. In each of the last 3 seasons, he had 2 wins in 21, 1 win in 22, and another win in 23. So that with this last weekend is 5. And then he also has a total of 3 second place finishes and has never finished third. So he now has more wins than he has any other podium position, which is both amazing and ridiculous all at the same time.
Yeah, it's like I said, the guy when he's on, you better look out because it doesn't seem to matter what gets thrown in front of him, he's coming to the front. But man, when he's having a bad day, it is a truly bad day. So yeah, I mean, like I said, hopefully we keep seeing the first, but hopefully we see some thirds and some more seconds and stuff like that because ultimately that's what makes the championships. That's what's got you holding number one plane at the end of the season. So for Thrasher, just keep thrashing on and try not to thrash yourself out, if you know what I mean.
Last 3 guys that we need a little bit of conversation about before we get rid of the 250 class. Smoking Joe Shimoda, another race off of the podium, but a step in the right direction. He ends up fourth. I believe that's the second fourth place finish that he's accrued, coming all the way back. Um, he and Levi Kitchen had a knockdown, almost knockdown, drag out war after Levi was actually challenging for the lead. He was looked like he was actually moving forward, that ended up going down at kind of a really bad spot because his bike was sort of pointed up, and he's not exactly the largest individual to sort of quickly just jump on that thing and get going. That was a bummer. And then sitting in a podium position, if not for him crashing, Jordan Smith would not have been on the podium, is RJ Hampshire going down late. And that was the difference on, yeah, that looked like a pretty tricky double heading back towards the mechanics area. His mechanic must have been throwing the pit board or at least drawing a sad face after that. What are your thoughts on those 3?
Shimoda, I agree. I think the momentum is starting to turn. I I do I I think he's got a sense of urgency. I think it's
He
not the
must.
Shimoda that we wanted to see. I don't think it's the one that the team wanted to see. I'm not sure if there's stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm not aware of as far as comfort on the bike or what. But I don't think a fourth place for Joe Shimoda should be looked at as a good result. And I'm not saying that it
Agreed.
isn't at the moment, but I think Joe is a caliber of rider where, if he's off the box, he's probably not stoked about it. So I know those guys are going to go back to the drawing board. They're going to keep doing work. Hopefully, a little more consistent conditions moving forward for the next little bit. And I think you'll start to see some difference in riders' performances and stuff like that go. I will say, as much as I enjoy seeing somebody like Marchbanks do well, I mean, like I said, it's a local team. And I hope that he is able to do it in dry, just like he has been able to do in the wetter conditions. But as things start to get more of a quote unquote normal supercross conditions, I think you'll see Shimoda do better. Man, RJ is it's a heartbreaker. I mean, the guy rides with so much heart, and you can see it on the TV screen. Like he's one of the only guys where you can literally be watching the race in a bar, and you can tell, like, man, that guy wants it so bad because he's just the feet start coming off. I mean, he's throwing all over the place, but the arm is just locked wide open. And so, I'm glad he didn't get hurt. I'm glad he didn't throw a whole season away. I'm frustrated that he's just a wild child, man. He sends it, and it's like that's great, but it too often the time ends up with him on the ground, and so yeah, it's tough for him, but all in all, I'm glad he's healthy. And then Kitchen, that was your third, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
there's like it seemed like a Levi Kitchen kind of night. Like it seemed like the one where he was gonna move
right.
through and get it done for PC. But yeah, a slip. Honestly, it looked like he's got some wheel spin coming out of that corner. And honestly, it was the exact same thing that happened to Ken Roxon.
Well, and I think hopefully everybody over there at PC's walking around ladders. Nobody's broken mirrors. We've had one rider down already from the team.
Right.
The PC curse rumors are already starting. So my biggest thing is like, hey man, if you go down, I just want him to get up in one piece. Like you said, it was a tricky spot to fall in, but then like trying to get out of that spot in like suction cup mud also, I think made a bad situation worse. So I'm sure he's not probably stoked about the night, but I don't think you can really take too much away from him. I think
Still
he
sitting
has
second
good,
in points.
yeah, had a good solid ride in. He's still in the fight, so comes out swinging for the first Triple Crown.
Yeah, he's only 8 points back heading into, and yeah, the race that he won last year was a triple crown. So maybe that would be in some more extra wind in his sails. Smoking Joe Shimoda right now. Is that 21 points down after 3 rounds? Like he honestly at this point he needs help. Like he I don't think you're making up that much points over the next 5 rounds by just chipping away. He needs the rest of those guys to take points away from each other. Certainly not how he wanted to start the season, but maybe we're seeing a little bit of signs of life. And hopefully we get a dry track this weekend in Anaheim too. Moving over to the 450 class, we talked about Aaron Plessinger's awesome win at nauseum. Congratulations to him. That's absolutely sick. He is now your points leader, albeit by a very slim margin, and somewhat thanks to the fact that you had Chase Sexton, who was your points leader coming in, not have the best of nights. He ends up, was that the seventh place position? He'll have eighth. The eighth from Chase. That's not gonna get her. That's not gonna get her done. Bummer to see how that would work out for Chase. But yeah, you got Plessinger with the win. He's got a small lead over both Chase and Jett. Give me some thoughts on the 450 class. I know we already kind of talked about it a little bit. Anyone kind of jump off the page at you that's doing awesome slash guys who are really off the pace? You like to tell me
I
list them out?
was I was once again really impressed with Dylan Ferrandis.
Yes,
He has been a quiet
sneaky good.
Yeah, I mean, like just a slide under the radar. I seriously, I have been impressed with the team. I've been impressed with his rides. And yeah, I don't even want to talk about it too much because I think this whole under the radar thing is just
Just keep
going
it
super.
going.
That's all I got to say about that. But I know other riders, man, I think Cooper Webb needs a big pat on the back. Those were tough conditions. He's another guy that's not. Um, if you want to talk about physical stature, he's definitely not the tallest, probably not able to dab a foot nearly as easy as an AP or an AC. And so I think it was great conditions for him. Man, he really came to life there at the end of the race. I'll go ahead and say I don't think Chase did anything intentional, whether we're going to cover that or not. I
Yeah,
know
no, go for it.
some people have got different opinions on it, but I've watched the replay. I think it was just one of those things. And quite honestly, I think Cooper Webb probably feels the same way because to me, Cooper is the type of guy where if he genuinely felt like he got screwed with, he'd have probably said a little more than that on the microphone. So,
A couple of times, I bet.
yeah, exactly. And so I think all in all, it was unfortunate. And I do think Chase is probably sitting there going, oh, great, as much as anybody else. But nonetheless, I think that was a great ride for Coop. And I think completely uninterrupted, I think that thing would have come down to the line. I don't think he would have got him, but I think it would have come down to the line. And so, yeah, good ride for him. Besides that, man, no, nothing really impressed me. Like it's been, Tomac had a tough night. AC had a tough night. And then obviously like you've got Chase where same thing. It just didn't seem like they could get it together and get into a rhythm. And so it just seemed like for a lot of those guys, once one thing went wrong, the whole race went down the drain. So like I said, as much as I enjoy some crazy conditions and some different styles of racing, I am excited to get back to some good old normal conditions, sunny skies or a dome. Let's get everything covered up and
Let's
have
see
some
these
fun.
guys make it look easy. We've seen them make it look
Exactly.
hard a couple of times, or like they feel it's like almost like a human element injecting those types of conditions because they like they're not perfect, right? They can't just like hit every line and this, that, and the other thing. And the yeah, it's almost good to see. But yeah, you're right. I want to see Ken Roxon battle with Eli Tomac and Sexton and Lawrence Plessinger. I want all those guys to be just great training through. And yeah, I honestly I'll leave to say this is first of all, I'd love to see Justin Barsha up on the podium. Those are the conditions that you absolutely think he would excel in. And it seems to be that he's now got a clean bill of health and that he'll be more in the mix. But I send some thoughts and prayers to the Husky rig because yeah, it's a tough go for the boys in white right now. The gear looked good. Like I said, the San Diego Chargers gear looked good on Christian, but he hasn't had a weekend to write home about yet. But lucky for him, we have 14 more rounds to spin this thing around. So hey,
Yeah, it's almost curious the way things are just going bad for them. Because I mean, Christian certainly had his issues, but Malcolm has as well. And so yeah, I don't know. As far as what I've been able to read and put together, I haven't heard anything blatantly blaming the bike or injury or anything like that. It just seems to have been a really, really, really tough start. And so, yeah,
the
I mean,
bike they're
both
on is leading the points.
that's what I mean. Like it's
Yeah,
like the preseason who's flying at the test track. I heard multiple things about how fast Malcolm was going,
yep.
and it's just we just haven't seen it. And so I don't really know what's to say. I mean, I definitely think the guys are capable and I think they're in shape, but and whether it's the start, whether it's qualifying, they've got to break it up a little bit and get into a different spot so that they're able to even show what they've got. Because I feel like a lot of times they've hit the deck or they've had something happen and it's like 2 or 3 laps into the race, they're essentially rolling around the track. And that's not how anybody wants to see those guys. And so yeah, definitely a tough start to the Husky rig on the 450 side of things.
Yeah, no, it'll be a few weeks before either one of them is putting a serious dent into their current deficit of points, just because, like, unless they plan on like just rattling off wins, they're going to be kind of stuck in that 16 to 10, 11 points sort of realm. And that's maybe like that's gaining the guys ahead of them by like 5, 6 points a weekend, which like a lot of those guys, like right now, Jorge Prado, 10th in points. He's currently 36 points. That's three times the current points for Christian Craig. Like obviously Jorge Prado, he'll only be racing one more race after this one being sent Anaheim too. But yeah, same thing with other guys along those same lines, like a Barsha. Like honestly, I think Barsha probably stands a higher chance of actually distancing himself from those two, rather than kind of falling into their clutches. So they've got their work cut out for them. But like I said, that's just some more storylines to follow along with. So let's wrap up the power hour, man. Let's talk about let's just some fun stuff. Let's go straight up to Lit Kit, and I'm gonna take the lead on this one. It's kind of off the radar, but I loved what Canvas did for both MCR, as well as they basically rolled out the same look for Justin Starling. Stardog was looking good with the with his gear. Yeah, the sort of like actually throwback to not the jersey I have over my shoulder. I was rocking a I had a McGrath jersey behind me for the longest time, but yeah, I like that look. It was like 90s with the yellow pants. That was not bad. What'd you think?
Yeah, the 1-800 call Vince or the 1-800 Starling
Oh,
look.
no one wants that phone number. But
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was cool. Like I said, I think it's really fun when the gear companies get into it, and I think Michael over there at Canvas has really got the expressive freedom to kind of go beyond what some of these other brands are able to do, where he gets really intricate and detailed with how he mimics some of these other gears, and I love it. I think it's cool. I had a lot of fun. The first one that I saw was actually Vince's, and so like the 1-800 call Vince, like I was like, oh, that's perfect. Like, and it was right next to a picture of McGrath wearing the gear, and so. No, I think it looked good. As far as my lit kit goes, since you said them, I'm not gonna lie, and I've actually seen a lot of people hating on it, so I hope I don't just get eaten alive for this, but I liked what the Lawrences were wearing. I liked that kind of
okay.
throwback-esque Alpine Stars gear. I thought it looked really good. I thought the way it fit together with the bike and what they were going for, I thought it looked really good, while also they were able to still run their Red Bull helmets and stuff like that. And I felt like you had the theme going on while everything up here was still relatively untouched. And so I thought it looked cool. I'd be curious to see that set up on a different bike graphic, because I do feel like the certain colors in it wouldn't look great with majority of your stock colors.
Mhm.
But as far as for the thematic race, no, I really liked it.
No, fair enough. I did like what they did. As far as marrying that with what Throttle Jockey did for Team Honda, they obviously went for like an Elsinore look. I would have, if I'm Alpine Star, I go deep on that look. I go 70s. I go like 70s Alpine Star logo, like the sort of like the swirl, like they used to basically have like a target dead center. I would have went with maybe like kind of look into like as they were kind of throwing it back to like Jimmy Ellis, as well as a couple of the other guys that rode in the 70s. I might like attach like I would have went black pants, like I would have like because like the black leather pants was like so I would have went super clean that way. Probably tried to pair that with a black boot, perhaps, or even a white boot, just to throw in some a more modern flair. And then it's on the Red Bull side of things, and like Red Bull, obviously the helmet is iconic. I would have loved to see them try to maybe like wrap, like almost like do a like what a Red Bull helmet would have looked like 1970. Like rather than having like the glitter look, because like that wasn't really, I wouldn't say not possible because they had paint jobs that were like had a sort of gold fleck in it in the 60s and 70s, but still like I would have loved to see almost like a matte look with like their numbers on the sides of the helmet, which at that time would have been AMA rule. I think that would have been neat. As just far maybe like if I'm nitpicking or just throwing out some ideas of how to like sort of tie that together a little bit better, that's what maybe my approach would have been, because you have like sort of a 90s gear with a 70s bike. Those don't like, obviously they both look sick, don't want to get me wrong. But yeah, if I was to sort of like throw my own 2 cents into that. But yeah, good call with the Alpine Star stuff. Those guys rarely miss.
Yeah, it's definitely like I said, I get excited when the full factory teams and all of the companies get on board. I mean, when you've got gear creators talking to graphic creators, and we are kind of entering that era of gear ability. Whereas if you are somebody that's got frequent communication with people that is making your gear, I mean, like especially on the consumer side, whether it's canvas, I mean, the ability for real customization to your gear is there. And I think it provides a whole nother opportunity as far as putting together a quote unquote kit. Like everybody thinks about the kit just being the gear, but now you're able to really kind of tie together, oh man, I want to get my helmet wrapped, and then I'm going to get my bike done this way, and then I'm going to get these color boots, and then so now if you've got the money to throw at it, you can look absolutely badass every time you roll out on the track, even if you're slow.
Hell
So
yeah. Especially if
look
you're a
for
guy
us
like
folks like that.
myself, a vet guy, you're dialing up backyard designs and just like playing around with their tools on their website to make your bike look so sick. Hopefully you're doing the same, Zach. When will people see you on a dirt bike? When will they see you playing music? And then this is your opportunity to tee up out ranch.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a little chilly here, and well, I feel bad saying that when I'm talking to you, but it is cold for Mr. Southern American that doesn't like it below about 40. So there's a small chance I might break out Old Big Nasty this weekend, but besides that, I don't really know. It'll probably be a month or so. We're gonna get the North Carolina Motocross Series kicked off here at the start of February, and then GNCC kicking off right after that, the third week of February. So hopefully I'll be able to hop on the bike at least once before the season starts, and then playing music next Friday here in Charlotte. So I got two different shows here in Charlotte. You guys can follow me on social media and see what I've got going on. I'm playing all over the Southeast. I'm trying to line up some shows at some of these races too, baby. I'm going to be playing back at Loretta's, I believe, and hopefully some of these GNCCs, maybe a couple of shred tours as well. So who knows, man? I'm gonna bring that six string with me, and if somebody's interested, I'll start playing. But besides that, yeah, no, absolutely. Out at the ranch, available Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, wherever you get your tunes at. But it's written for racers from a racer. It's about being out at Loretta Lynn's, and if you haven't gotten the opportunity to yet, I'm telling you what, once you get out there, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because there's no place quite like it. Just ask Brad. He had his first time last year. But till then, man, another great episode. I'll see you on the next one.
And with that, this is Out at the Ranch by Zac Herrin.